including on this question about jobs. I'm pretty long on human creativity and our ability to adjust to different economic frameworks. For example, if I told my dad 10 years ago that I have a job and my job is I get on a plane, I go and I sit down and I talk to people for 12 hours a day and I get paid, he would laugh. Wouldn't believe me. Jobs change, they evolve. And what AI is going to do is create new jobs, right? 20 years ago, the idea of a social media manager as a job didn't exist. That exists now because of what the internet economy has done. So the most important thing that you can do is have a lifelong love for learning.
大家好，欢迎来到数位时代，我是总编辑王志仁。在我们这期节目里面，邀请到一位贵宾是 Google 的政府事务及公共政策的副总裁 Wilson White 到我们节目来。Welcome, Mr. White.
Thank you. Good morning, and appreciate the opportunity to be on your show today.
Yeah, as the audience can tell, I'm a bit nervous since seldom have a big shot like Wilson. Okay. So Wilson, would you, before we start, I'd like to briefly introduce yourself and your role in Google?
So I'm Wilson White, Vice President for Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google, where I have an exciting set of responsibilities. So first, I look after government affairs and public policy operations for the entire Asia-Pacific region. And that's a role that I've taken on in the past year. In addition to that, I have global responsibility for government affairs and public policy for what we call our platforms and devices product area. So that includes big platforms like Android, Google Play, Chrome, Photos, but also our hardware portfolio. So things like the Pixel devices, smartphone, tablets, etc., our smart home devices, and our other hardware devices.
So this role also means you spend a lot of time on the road, traveling to visit different countries, talking to the government officials, instead of staying at home in Mountain View, right?
That's correct.
So, and you also have been to Taiwan many times. So I'm just curious, what about the purpose for this trip in Taiwan this time?
So this trip is a good trip, and one, anytime I can have an opportunity to come to Taiwan, I look favorably upon it. It's a great place to visit. I've visited for work many times, but also personally. It's one of the favorite vacation places for my family. The occasion for this trip is working with our colleagues, industry partners, and the Taiwanese government on what's been a global problem, and that's the problem around online fraud and scams. So this week we hosted, Google hosted our second edition of a big summit where we are discussing with industry partners how we collectively tackle this problem with fraud and scams. So it's a great opportunity to come and engage with government as well as industry partners and other stakeholders on this problem.
Okay, and you also met and talked to our Minister Wang of the Ministry of Digital Affairs, right? So any key message or important things you'd like to share with us? Yes,
I had a great conversation with Minister Huang from the Ministry of Digital Affairs. And in addition to the dialogue we've had and the partnership we've had on tackling this global problem, we also announced today a strategic partnership with the ministry and how we work together on this, how we share intelligence and share signals around what bad actors are doing in the fraud and scam space, how we build capacity and raise awareness so that local Taiwanese people are much more empowered and equipped to identify and counter scams themselves. But also how we work with other industry partners, other governments, so we have kind of a joint cooperation with law enforcement and government and industry players to really stop the organized crime that's really at the root of this global problem.
Okay. Talking about this digital fraud, it's growing exponentially in Taiwan every year. And according to a very conservative estimate, it would cause at least $3 billion loss a year. So I'd like to get your views of, how countries like Taiwan can do something to stop or prevent. It will be impossible to totally prevent, but at least to improve this kind of problem.
It's as I mentioned to you, it's a global problem, but it is clear that the Asia Pacific region plays an important role in this problem. Right? A lot of the organized crime that's really spurring this, we see it in Southeast Asia and other parts of the region. But this manipulative tactics, this criminal activity, it spans beyond the Asia-Pacific region. I think Taiwan is doing a great job, but governments like Taiwan, one of the most important things that we can do is see the problem for what it is. It's organized crime. Most of this is criminal activity. This is not an individual opportunistic person, right? And these criminal organizations are using very sophisticated technology. They're well-funded, and they are working cross-border, cross-platform to execute their crimes. And so one of the most important things governments can do is to see this problem as an all-of-society problem and to work collaboratively with law enforcement, the tech sector, other industry players, internet service providers, the banks, to have kind of an all-of-society approach to understanding where the bad actors are, the types of behavior they engage in. We should be building technology to get ahead of the game as well. And it's that kind of collaborative approach that I think is going to give us the best chance of mitigating some of the economic harm that we're seeing from this activity.
Right. And also in this regard, are there some kind of things that Taiwan can learn from other countries to, help to solve this problem?
I think it's that's one of the joys I've seen as I've been engaging on this issue here in the region is the exchange of information and the exchange of intel. Oftentimes we may see a fraud campaign or a scam tactic that may show up in Brazil. And months later, that same tactic may surface here in Taiwan or in another part of the region. And so being able to be in constant contact with other government partners, other industry partners, sharing that information, that's been one of the best things to help mitigate some of the worst parts of these activities.
Right, so it relies on country-to-country kind of collaboration.
Correct, correct.
But usually technology, I think, advances much faster than these country-to-country collaboration. So especially with technology like AI, these kind of organized crime can, grow faster with the new technology. So in addition to this government effort, so what are some other things they can leverage to help with this?
It's a very, very good question. And this is where I think platforms and companies like ours can participate in being part of the solution here, right, as a technology provider. I'll give you a good example of where we've seen this and how we've used technology to help do this, right? One of the things, if you study the behavior of the bad actors, you can very quickly start to see signals, the type of behaviors that they engage in. So one of the things that we saw on Android was some of the bad actors were duping users into side-loading apps onto their device. Side-loading is when you do a direct download. You don't go through the App Store or the Google Play Store. You directly download the software onto your machine. Now, typically what we do is we try to warn users when they're side-loading that be sure you understand where the source of this software is coming from before you download it. And for better or worse, oftentimes users may ignore those warnings. Bad actors know that. Right. And so they know that users will bypass the warning and download the software. They take over the phone and then they can get into the user's financial information and then the harm is done. But because we know that signal that users may ignore the warning, but bad actors may dupe the user into downloading an app that gives permission for that app to access data that they shouldn't have access to, then maybe we can actually get ahead of this. So AI can detect that type of behavior on the front end. And if it appears that this app doesn't have a legitimate use, this is only designed to take advantage of the user, AI can preemptively prevent that app from being downloaded. So we don't have to rely on the user to make that decision, right? And that's one of the ways that we've used AI technology to protect users even in that most vulnerable state.
And we talk about this country-to-country effort to stop this digital fraud. And also, country need to work with a platform provider like Google because you work on global scale, right? So I just like to know that any kind of stories or examples you'd like to share with us that with the success stories that country work with like Google to successfully stop or prevent this kind of organization crime in digital fraud?
Yeah, I'll give a couple of examples. One, I think here in Taiwan, working with the Ministry of Digital Affairs, there's a couple of things that we've done. Not only have we shared, created a channel where we can share when people are reporting to the ministry of bad acts, having that open channel so we can see those signals and then try to get ahead of the fraud campaign. But we've also worked with the ministry on anti-fraud legislation, actually putting rules in place to ensure that this type of criminal activity is well understood and can be enforced against. So that's been a great activity here in Taiwan. Another good example I would say is in Brazil. I traveled to Brazil, met with the government there, met with the banks there, and one of the phenomenons there showed up differently. So rather than a fraudulent text message that force you to click on a link and then now you're in trouble, what the bad actors would do is as a user is walking on the street, they would snatch the phone. Now in that moment, the phone is open. They can then very quickly access your banking app, and then the economic harm is quickly follows that. So as we dug into that problem, we thought, maybe there's a technical solution to this, right? We can use sensors in the device to detect whether that motion, whether it's likely that the phone is being stolen, and more quickly shut down the phone, more quickly protect that user from their data being taken from a criminal. And we work with the government on not only building that technical solution, but also amplifying it so users know that protection is there, and then work with the government to talk to their partners in other governments. And so now this technical solution that showed up in Brazil is now available in multiple countries around the world. And that's a great example of this, not only industry-government collaboration, but government-to-government collaboration.
I see. And besides digital fraud, what are other top concerns for these government officials when you frequently meet and talk to them?
I'll tell you, one of the biggest areas in Taiwan, across the region, and in fact across the world right now that governments are wrestling with is how to deal with artificial intelligence, how to have the right set of guardrails in place, but also how to create the environment where the benefits of AI can be widely shared. And so that's a topic that I think government officials across the globe is a high priority for them.
For example, like having rules or regulations to kind of regulate the AI development.
That's correct. I mean, so one of the things that we've been saying to governments as they're thinking through this is you want to have a balanced approach to this. So our approach to AI development and deployment is what we call bold, responsible, and together. Right? We want to be bold. We want to push the bounds of science. We want to be as innovative as we can. We invest heavily in research so we can solve big challenges with AI. That's the bold part. But we need to do it responsibly. We need to make sure that as we develop and deploy this technology, that we are very, very aware of the impact that it will have on people's lives, the impact that it will have on society, and that we roll this technology out in a responsible way. And we can only do that responsibly when we do that in collaboration with government, with civil society, with industry partners. And it's that together part is how our framework is. And as governments are thinking about a regulatory framework around that, that's really a good starting point. How do you ensure that you have a policy framework for AI that spurs innovation, but has the right proper guardrails for those risk areas that are introduced by this new technology? And how do you ensure that you're doing this in a collaborative way?
AI is a global phenomenon, but when it comes to different countries, I think they more like to localize AI according to their perhaps the cultural difference, preference, things like that. So there's such things like a sovereign AI, or things like this. So each country or each different region will have their own preference. So how do you on the global scale, AI as a general issue, but can tailor-made or fit to a different country or region's preference.
Yeah, I think that's an important factor in how governments are thinking about this as well. I'll say there's some things that are foundational, right? You want to make sure that you're investing in infrastructure. You're investing in kind of the fundamental technologies that allow AI to be adopted, that you are encouraging adoption of AI. That probably spans any jurisdiction. You also want to make sure that you're investing in your workforce so that your workforce is prepared for and equipped to exist and flourish in an AI-powered economy. And thirdly, that you have the right policy framework in place. That's where some of the localization comes into play. But one of the things that I think is going to be important for this kind of technology is to ensure that even as you have local national frameworks, that they're interoperable. Because you want the technology to be, the benefits of the technology to be shared widely across borders, right? And so that government-to-government cooperation, even on AI policy, I think is going to be very important, even as governments are thinking about what's the best framework for my national interests.
Yeah. And also for AI to be pervasive and to have more users to try their different use of AI, there's also a related issue about the copyright. Because if you generate the AI content, then the copyright issue will be kind of also a how do you kind of balance this? On the one hand, you want to encourage everyone, more people to use AI, but on the other hand, how do you kind of prevent or stop this kind of copyright issue to get serious?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. It's one that's being discussed and debated around the world. Of course, you want to make sure you have policies in place that encourage creativity and protect the creative works of our creators. One of the interesting things that we're starting to see now is how AI is actually helping the creative industry, is helping fuel creativity. And then you also want to balance that with the productivity gains and the other gains that you get from this technology. So I don't think it's a clear-cut answer here, but I do think it's one of those important issues for society. How do we encourage creativity? How do we protect the creative works, but also how do we ensure that AI is able to be trained locally, AI is able to understand local nuance, and AI actually has the type of material it needs to continue to produce really good benefits for society. And it's that balance is what we're going to have to achieve as a society, and that's going to require a multi-stakeholder approach. We need the creatives there, we need the technologists there, we need civil society, we need government there to really think about what the right balance is.
Right. And with AI, people usually have this kind of two extreme scenario, the boom day scenario and the doom day scenario, worry about AI taking jobs and also expect AI to create new jobs. So with your experience, you switched from engineer to lawyer, then to the current role in Google. So for those people who are optimistic about AI, and perhaps they want to get ready for the new kind of jobs created by AI, what can they do?
It's a very good question. I got to admit that I'm an optimist about AI. I think it's still early days in this technology, and we're already seeing huge benefits from it. I think it's going to be net positive on society, particularly if we get this balance right, where we see where the risk areas are, we put proper guardrails in place, but we don't do it in a way that stifles innovation, right? If we get that balance right, I'm very optimistic on where we end up with AI, including on this question about jobs. I'm pretty long on human creativity and our ability to adjust to different economic frameworks. For example, if I told my dad 10 years ago that I have a job and my job is I get on a plane and I go into a conference room and I have a conversation.
You mean on a private jet?
Yeah, not a private jet yet, but if I told him that, he would probably wouldn't believe me. But if I told him that that's my job, I go and I sit down and I talk to people for 12 hours a day and I get paid to do that, he would laugh. He still laughs when I tell him this because.
But by the what did your dad do?
Yeah, my dad was what we call laborer. So he worked at a lumber mill. So a job for him was being on the front lines, moving lumber through the machines, manual labor, like really hard labor. That was a job, and it was the dignity that came with that. Jobs change, they evolve, and what AI is going to do is create new jobs, right? 20 years ago, the idea of a social media manager as a job didn't exist. That exists now because of what the internet economy has done. So that's, I imagine that's what's going to happen. And what I tell my own kids who are going to be the people who are living in this AI-powered economy, it's the most important thing that you can do is have a lifelong love for learning. And that starts with our young people all the way to people like us who are well established. Is AI is going to force us to always learn, always adjust, always be agile in this. And I think if that's what we have, and if we build that into how we are transitioning in this AI space, we're going to be okay.
So your dad didn't tell you what to do, but you tell him what you want to do. So do you expect your kids someday would tell you something you couldn't, possibly imagine right now, but something probably will be, be realized?
Easily. I think they're going to do that pretty soon. Like it's like the way technology is integrated in their lives is very different from ours, very different from my parents and generations before us. So that's just been the history of human evolution here. And I think AI is going to be one of those unlocks. I mean, we saw this, for example, with this technology we call AlphaFold. We actually, one of our colleagues won a Nobel Prize for this, right? Which is now...
Demis Hassabis.
Yeah, exactly. This is now allowing millions of researchers around the world to really understand the human makeup. It's opening up opportunities for new drug discovery, for solving healthcare challenges that's vexed humankind for the history of humankind. And AI is powering that, right? Big challenges. So I think if we have to be smart about it and put the right guardrails in place, but I think the generations that are following us, they're going to be the generation that really solves some challenges that we have not been able to solve up to this point.
Yeah, for young children, especially in countries like the United States, perhaps have more resources to these AI-related, tools. What about for those, in the mid 40s or 50s, in smaller economies? So, any suggestion for them to kind of switch their, jobs or to improve their working skills? Yeah,
it's an important piece, right? Because it's easy to start from the beginning with young people and have them ready. For someone who's much more established, how do you make that transition? One of the things that we've been trying to do with this, partnering with governments around the world, is working on what we call AI skilling, right? So we're getting kind of the basic digital literacy, AI literacy skills so that even if you are an experienced person in a particular discipline, you're learning how to use AI in that discipline, to be more efficient in that discipline, right? And that's been very promising. We've seen that that begin to flourish over the past few years here. But we're also offering educational tools, certification programs, so folks can actually go and get smart on the basics of AI. So it's no longer a fear-based thing. It's something that they have the comfort in engaging with and incorporating into their daily lives. And that's been our contribution to trying to help this transition, even for people who are further along on their journey.
Right, try to shorten the digital divide, right? Because otherwise it would become...
too wide.
Yeah.
Correct.
And also, you teach entrepreneurship in school, right? So for entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs to be today, what would be your lessons or suggestions, given this AI advancement? Because it seems to be a lot of new opportunities are to be created, but also, meanwhile, there are a lot of challenges because if Gemini release some functions, some start may just means the end to them. So this kind of big change happens almost on weekly or daily basis. So I'm just curious, what your advice for the entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I
teach them in school.
Yeah, I teach this entrepreneurship course at the University of Maryland. And one, by the way, the today's entrepreneurs are they are fantastic. I mean, they are solving challenges that we couldn't even imagine, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And they have the tools to actually go after and solving those things. So I've been amazed with just the sheer talent of entrepreneurship that we're seeing just in that one program. And I'm sure this exists in universities around the world. But one of my biggest lessons for my students who aspire to be entrepreneurs is to not think of the problem that you're trying to solve as a one-time thing, right? To be much more agile and evolutionary in how you're thinking about the problem that you're solving, because oftentimes you have a startup founder who they have a challenge, they have an idea on what the solution is, and they go after and do that. And one of the things that I've seen with technologies like AI, you have quantum computing that's coming down the pike here, is that technology is going to supercharge our ability to solve problems. And so that's my biggest lesson to my students, is to be open, be agile, and as I mentioned earlier, to have this kind of lifelong love for learning, right? It's not going to be a solved problem. It's going to be a problem that we'll learn from and continue to get better at.
Do you have a textbook for this class, or?
No, not one that I've written, but I've thought about writing a textbook. But I use like a collection of works from other folks to serve as the basis for that course.
Such as,
it's really a business law. Like what I try to do, as my background as a lawyer, is to essentially a business law 101 for non-lawyers, right? So if you are a startup founder, rather than thinking of every issue as let me go hire a lawyer, or not thinking about these issues, this course is designed to kind of sensitize non-lawyers, founders, with the areas that may be important for them as they go about building their organization, right? How to incorporate intellectual property, raising capital, going global. Like all of these things have legal implications that even as a founder, of course, you'll get legal expertise at some point, but you should have some sensitivity to that so you can help make the right decisions as you go about building and growing your company. So a lot of business law type course materials is what I pull from to help educate my students.
And for your information, here in Taiwan, there are 3 books on most CEOs or entrepreneurs' shelves. One is Clayton Christensen's Innovative Dilemma, and the other is Jeffrey Moore's Closing Chasm. Third one is Jim Collins' Built to Last. So basically, these 3 books are most widely read by the entrepreneurs or the CEOs here in Taiwan. So I'm just curious, in your class, so what books?
It's mostly business law courses, because the course is actually the legal aspects of entrepreneurship. And so it's not a business course. Okay. It's kind of a legal adjacent course.
I see. But would you encourage them to start their own company when they graduate from college, or even quit college to start a company?
Yeah, I mean a lot of these.
Perhaps to work in big companies like Google for like 5 or 10 years, then thinking about starting up their own. Yeah,
one of the things that's been quite interesting from this course, I teach an undergraduate version of the course and then a graduate version of the course. And one of the interesting things is feedback that I've gotten from students who've matriculated through the course is that skill set of having like a survey of the types of issues that you will encounter as a founder and being sensitized to those issues. It applies regardless if you go off and build your own company, if you go off and be a leader in another company or organization, intrapreneur, I guess is what they call it. Like you're creating a new division inside of a company. That skill set is useful there. So I don't try to bias students toward any outcome. I really want them to walk away having that kind of foundational ability to recognize the issues that any founder or any leader will need to be socialized with, so that they can thrive in whatever path they decide to choose.
Right, and the following may not be the government affairs and public policy area, but I know that Google is among the top VC in Silicon Valley, makes a lot of investment in these startups every year. So for students from your class, if they want to start with their own and running up the proposal, try to raise the fund from Google, what would you suggest?
Hey, I have a good pitch. We have two organizations at Google where in this space. We have Google Ventures, which is typically we're looking at earlier stage ventures. And then we have Capital G, which is kind of a late stage venture capital company. And so if students are thinking about raising capital, I think Google is one of several options that they have to pursue. But the pitch is the thing that you're going to have to be great at.
You also train them to do things like elevator pitch?
Not me, not in my course. I do have there's a companion course that's more designed for that aspect of it, like a CEO, founder aspect of it. My course is more focused on the legal aspects.
Okay. And a recent issue that has been widely talked about here in Taiwan, in addition to this digital fraud, is the tariff from your President Trump. So I'm also curious that do you worry about the retaliation from other countries, for example, like from Europe, on the U.S. service sector? Because services like Google or Facebook or Microsoft, it had a lot of revenue from overseas, and this time these partners may have something as countermeasures. So do you worry about that, or do you have some kind of preparation to kind of as countermeasure?
Yeah, I think in terms of preparation, I would say I'm prepared to prepare. Obviously, we're monitoring the situation very closely. It's a unpredictable time, not just for Google, but for others in our sector and other sectors.
Right.
It's very difficult to predict the future. It's very difficult to predict where this lands, but we're watching it very closely.
Okay. So before I let you go, I know you have very tight schedule. So are there other important things you'd like to share with the audience here in Taiwan this time?
Well, look, I think first of all, the thing that brought me here this trip was the fraud and scams issue. It's a big issue. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for us to have an all of society approach to this, even down to the individual user. And so it's important that you take the time to educate yourself about the types of tactics that scammers are using so you can protect yourself and protect your families from some of the economic harm that these criminal organizations are impacting. And then the last thing I would just say, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to say it, is AI. One of the things that I find great joy in working in this part of the world is the optimism around technology. And I think Taiwan can lead the world by maintaining that optimism. There's a great government here that works very collaboratively with industry and with civil society. So the ecosystem is well prepared and well set up to really benefit from AI. So take advantage of that, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
So any plan for the next trip to Taiwan?
I'm going to talk to my colleagues immediately after my trip this week on when can I come back, and hopefully have more time to have some fun here in Taiwan.
Okay, thank you, Wilson.
Thank you.
我们今天非常谢谢 Google 的副总裁Wilson White， 负责的是政府事务及公共政策。那这次到台湾来，也跟台湾的数发部长黄彥男有交流关于就是防诈骗跟这个 scam 这方面的很多的议题。那我们也期待下次 Wilson 可以再到我们的 Podcast 节目来跟我们分享进一步的一些进展。Thank you, Wilson.
谢谢。
也谢谢各位听众朋友的收听收看，希望大家喜欢这一集的内容，欢迎给我们点赞转发，也请持续关注和留言。我们下期再会。